Hi everybody, this is Steve Housen with tonsofTech.com. Today is going to be the first video in a series of videos that are for an introduction to Android. I'm getting ready to give this phone to my mother, and she's never used Android before, so between that and the fact that we've gotten a lot of requests for some basics on Android, just basic usage questions, and people that are coming from other phones and want to know how they get some of the same functionality of their other phones. So I'm going to go through the basics. This first video is going to be the physical and software interface of Android, and then we're going to do some other videos on how to dial and use your contacts, how to set up a Google account, and we're just gonna, for this series, we're going to stick to the basics. We may do another series if everybody likes this, a more advanced one that talks about rooting your phone or loading developer ROMs on it, or backing up your phone and stuff like that. But we're just going to keep it simple for now. So I'm going to dive right in. This is an LG Optimus phone, so this is what's considered an entry-level phone, but it has some physical aspects that are pretty uniform across all Android devices. Pretty much all Android devices are going to have this volume up and volume down, either a rocker or separate buttons. This controls media or your ringer volume or your your game volume, depending on what applications you're using. At the top on this phone, it could be on the side, it could be on the bottom, is a 3.5mm headphone jack and power button. These two are actually, all three of those, the volume, the headphone jack, and the power button, are pretty standard on all Android devices. This one has some other buttons. It has a dedicated camera and voice search button, but that's hit and miss whether you have that on your phone or not. That's definitely not a standard thing. In addition, there's also a set of buttons along the bottom, and these are the menu, home, back, and search buttons. These are either going to be physical buttons, like on here, these are actual physical buttons that are built into the phone, or they're going to be part of the screen and they're going to be soft buttons. And what I mean by soft buttons are they're basically part of a dedicated area of the screen that you tap on that gives you the same functionality. I mean, it's a matter of preference whether you like the physical or the touch. They both have the same functionality. So I'm going to go ahead and go into the phone and just show you how some of those buttons work. This on this phone is Android 2.2, which is considered, it's named Froyo, is the version of Android. You're going to hear Froyo, Gingerbread, Eclair, whatever, depending on what version of the software is on your phone. Those correspond to the version numbers. I won't really go into that now, but I think Froyo and Gingerbread are probably the two most common right now. This has two sliders along the bottom. On the right is the sound on or mute on, mute off, or vibrate mode and audio mode, I guess is probably the best description. And if you want to mute the phone and put it in vibrate mode, all you do is you grab that, slide it over to the left. Now you get a little vibrate icon and it says sound off. If you want to turn it back, you just slide it back. It says sound on, and you have a speaker again. To log into the phone, you grab, it keeps shutting off on me. You grab the lock button and you just slide that over to the right. So now you're on the main screen of the phone. And the main screen is what's known as the home screen. This is where all your applications and widgets are, and I'll go into what applications and widgets are in a minute. But if you're coming from like BlackBerry or a regular non-smartphone, you basically have one home screen. If you're coming from like an iPhone or something, you have multiple home screens depending on how many applications you have. In Android, by default, you usually have a set number of home screens, and in this case, the set number is 5. So you can see by these dots down at the bottom, there's 2 on the left, 2 on the right. So that means we're on the third screen. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're basically on the middle screen, which means we can swipe this way, there's another screen, swipe this way again, there's another screen, and then we have no more. And then if you look at the dots, we have 4 on the right hand side, so we're basically on the leftmost screen. And then we can go ahead and swipe back. Now we're on the third screen, the middle screen again, and we can swipe this way, and there's all 5 of our screens. So the applications and the widgets that I mentioned, let me just show you the messaging application. Actually, before I do that, let me show you the functionality of the buttons down at the bottom. So the menu button is going to be context sensitive. So depending on where you are on the phone and what application you're in, it's going to bring up a menu related to what you're doing at that time. So we're on the home screen here, and let's go ahead and hit the menu button. What that did is, let's see if it focuses, it brought up a menu that has add, so you can add more widgets or application shortcuts. It has the wallpaper, you can go in and change the wallpaper, search, notifications, and settings. You can get into your settings there. If we go in, let's say, to messaging, and we hit the same menu button again, it's going to bring up a different set of menus. Now we have compose, search, and settings again, but that settings is the settings for the messaging application. The settings back here is the settings for the phone. Now you see me hit this button a bunch of times. This is the home button. So wherever you are on the phone, if you hit this, it brings you back to the home screen. Again, let's go into our messaging application. Now we want to get back to our home screen quickly. Hit the home screen button, takes us right back there. If we're in a menu, we want to get rid of the menu, hit the home screen button. The back button here at times has the same functionality as the home screen button, and at times it has completely different functionality. Again, these are context sensitive. So let's say we're in the messaging application, we want to get back to the home screen. We can hit the home button. If we're in the messaging application, on the first screen of the messaging application, we hit the back button, it takes us back to the home screen. Because what the back button does is it takes you back to the previous screen that you were on. So let's say you're in a web browser and you loaded up a page, and then say you load up Google, you do a search in Google, it takes you to a link, and then you want to go back to Google, you can just hit the back button. It's just like hitting the back button on your browser on your desktop. Whereas here, the reason why it took us back to the desktop is because we went into the messaging app and we immediately hit the back button. It took us right back because that was our previous screen. If we go into messaging and then say we go into settings for messaging, hit the back button, it takes us back to the main messaging window because that was the previous screen we were on. And then if we want, we can hit back again and it takes us back. So in that respect, it has the same functionality as the back button in the browser system-wide. The browser, every time you hit the back button, it takes you back to the previous page you were on. This back button has the same functionality. It takes you back to the previous screen you were on. Now last is the search button, and you hit that and it brings you into a Google search. You can start typing for whatever you want, and it'll find it for you. Again, that's context sensitive, so if you're in the messaging app and you hit the search button, it's going to let you search all your messages. You can see the little icon, and it says search messages right in there. So depending on where you are in the system, if you're in a web browser, it's going to let you do a Google search. If you're in your email and you hit that search button, it's going to let you search through your email. So that was the single press functions of the buttons. Now the buttons also have long press options. So basically if you hold the button for longer than a few seconds, it brings up a secondary function. So let's go through this again. For the search button, again, if you single tap it, it brings you into, if you're on the main screen, it brings you into your Google search or, your messaging search or email search, whatever. If you long press it, it pops up and lets you do your voice search. So this is the intro voice actions, the little guide. So again, if you long press, it brings you into here. The home button, if you long press the home button, it shows you the applications which have run most recently. So in this case, on this phone, we've used voice search, Google search, messaging, and music application recently. So if I want to get back into messaging from this menu, I just tap that and it brings me right back into messaging. The menu button, sometimes this brings up the keyboard if you long press that, but it depends on what screen you're on. If you're on a screen where you can input text and the keyboard's not there, you can hold down the menu button for a few seconds and it'll pop the keyboard up. The back button, I'm not sure that has a long press function.